So this video is being made for our UVA golf class here at Birdwood Golf at Boarside Resort. Again, Rob Fales. I'm the instructor for the course, and we've got some inclement weather today. So we're actually going to meet virtually. This is going to be more of like a presentation style. I will check the comments, hopefully periodically throughout. But I'm going to go ahead and start presenting this so that it becomes more of a kind of like neat and tidy video that maybe students can watch afterwards. And I am currently planning on posting this to the Golf Intervention page so that any and all of our subscribers can go ahead and watch it. So this is a concept that I've been thinking a lot about really over the past year and a half. And it revolves around understanding and clearly defining several key definitions. There are really three, and these are all going to pertain to the movement of swinging a golf club in really any swing, not just full swing, but short game and putting as well. The three main definitions we're going to talk about today are going to be contact, pressure, and tension. And I want to make sure that there's a clear distinction between these three because I think as teachers and as golfers, we oftentimes confuse them and we kind of jumble them up all as one thing. And I think a lot needs to be talked about how they are very, very different. So what is contact? What is pressure? What is tension? So contact, if we start into this first, is going to be the point of application, the points of connection, if you will, between you and the club, as well as you and the ground. The key points when it starts with the ground are going to be, and I'll actually use my hand to describe this because the hand and the feet are very, very similar. The points of contact that we're going to talk about are the middle kind of inside part of your heel. So this will be the heel of my foot, the heel of my hand, the base of the index finger, the base of the big toe, and then a little bit of the base of the little toe. So you can think of this as kind of like a tripod, right? 1, 2, 3. That when I apply contact straight down onto the ground, is going to form an arch. And you can kind of feel this. You can kind of feel the middle of your hand right there. If I'm applying force straight down, I'm basically creating a nice little arch right here, right? So from a contact perspective, there are really three main arches that I want to create. I want to create an arch in my trail foot. So again, I got my heel, kind of inside heel, base of big toe, and little toe, base of the little toe as well. All right, so I've got those 3 points of contact with my trail foot, as well as my lead foot. Right, so you can kind of start to explore this, and really it's going to be a good piece of feedback as far as where your center of gravity is. If I'm way too far forward, then I feel like the only point of contact that I have against the ground are essentially my toes and the bases of each of those toes. And by the way, if I'm also too far back, I can feel that now the only point of contact that I have now are my heels. So how well can I get my heel, my big toe, and my little toe contacting the ground? Again, I'm applying force straight down into the ground to kind of create a nice arch in those feet. All right. So from a contact perspective, that's what we're looking at in the feet. From a grip perspective, all right, again, it's very similar to creating an arch. I want to have my heel, right? So in more specifically with the grip, it's more kind of the heel pad itself, all right, on top, as you can see, hopefully, and able to apply down force straight down into the grip, right? So when I apply down force with my heel of my top hand, you'll see that club head goes straight up in the air. All right. I've got my fingers underneath. So hopefully you can see here that the club is very well secured kind of in my fingers as well. And then the base of my big toe, if you can think about, hey, this is my foot, this is also my hand. I want to have the grip underneath that bone right there, the base of that index finger, to be able to apply force straight down into the grip. And that force straight down is actually going to allow that club head to lower. So I have my heel pad pressing down. I have my base of index finger also pressing down, and I have the fingers underneath as contact on the grip. All right, so I want to be able to find those three pieces of contact: my fingers, my heel pad, and my base of index finger. Again, same thing with the feet. I've got my heel, I've got my big toe, all right, and I've got my toes themselves kind of resting on the ground. That little base of little toe also on the ground as well. So when you're setting up for a shot, let me go ahead and switch this back here. This is what you're going to want to be able to be aware of. Maybe not when you play, but certainly when you're troubleshooting. Is, hey, do I have the points of contact in my feet? Do I have the points of contact on the grip? All right. Very, very, very important that we understand the points of contact. So, any questions as far as that goes, feel free to type in the chat, and I'll be sure to answer those. So, if we don't have any questions on contact, now we're going to flow right into pressure. Pressure and contact are very kind of closely related in the sense that the contact you're creating is applying pressure to the ground as well as to the grip. But there's a key distinction between pressure and contact, and that is the change of pressure. The contact on the grip, if you actually look at the parts of my hand that are touching the grip, if you think about the parts of your feet that are touching the ground, the contact changes way less than the pressure changes. All right. Now, contact can change a little bit. If you look at let's talk about the feet real quick. Like in the backswing with some good players, you might start to see them lose contact with their lead heel. All right. And then certainly coming into impact, right, you'll see some weird stuff in terms of losing contact. But if you look at it from a global perspective, in the grand scheme of the swing itself, the contact in the grip on the ground and the contacts on the grip don't change that much. They change a little bit, but they really don't change that much. What changes is the pressure that you're applying, right? In several key areas. The first point of application is going to be that left or that top heel pad. Right. So to create movement in the club, I have to create a differential. I have to create a differential in my ribs. I have to create a differential in my legs and in my pelvis. Right. This is how I kind of get the swing going. If I don't create a differential, there's not going to be, if I don't create what we call this relative motion here, there's not going to be a differential in pressure on the grip. There might be, but it's not going to be very efficient. So as I create this nice differential, I feel my left side rib cage kind of changing shape, kind of pushing forward. Right side of rib cage kind of hangs out. What I'm going to feel, especially in this first little bit, is a ramping up of pressure in my left heel pad, as well as the fingers underneath the grip. All right. So that relative motion right there, my heel pad and the fingers, is kind of what's getting the club going. So I went from kind of very 50-50. Again, at setup, I didn't feel a ton different in terms of the pressure. Right index finger, left heel pad, fingers. They are all fairly well distributed. And the same way in my feet, by the way. Like my right versus my left foot feel very 50-50, if you will, in terms of pressure. But to get this thing going, I'm going to feel a ramp up in my lead foot, a ramp up kind of through my left heel pad, as well as the fingers to get this club going. All right, so that's the first change. At about this point, when this club and my arms start to pick up momentum, I'm then going to feel the pressure come off of my left foot and very much into my right foot. So again, I feel my heel, I feel the big toe, I feel a lot of pressure in that part of my foot. I'm also going to feel that pressure switch in the hands as well. So now I start to feel that it's in the base of my trail index finger, starting right about here. And that pressure in the trail hand and the trail foot is going to ramp up, ramp up, ramp up. And then it's going to still be in there, but it's going to start coming out, coming out, coming out. And then right about here, I'm going to feel a switch again. So the pressure is coming off of my trail foot and into my lead foot. So I'm going to feel a big spike in pressure in my lead foot about right here. And I'm also feeling the pressure come off of my trail index finger and sort of back into the lead hand, kind of the fingers of that lead hand. And I'm going to feel that thing switch over to the base of my lead index finger over on this side. So in the backswing, the pressure is in my trail index finger, and on the follow through, the pressure goes back to my lead index finger as the pressure is more of my lead foot. Right. So there's a rhythm to how the pressure changes in the hands and how the pressure changes in the feet. Pressure in my trail foot, pressure in my trail index, pressure in my lead foot, pressure in my lead index. Right. I'm going to allow for that pressure to change back and forth, but the contacts don't really change much. As you can see, the contacts in my feet aren't really changing. The contacts in my hands aren't changing, but the pressure certainly is. Any questions on pressure? You can feel pressure, right? When we've done some of the green reading stuff, right? When you're on a tilt, whenever you have that differential, right? I feel my left foot get heavy, my right foot get light, that kind of stuff. You can feel the change in pressure. All right. We don't want the hand contacts or your foot contacts changing as much. All right. Any questions on that? Awesome. Oh, didn't mean to move you here. I don't see any questions so far. So we're going to keep rolling. So I've got contact, which is really basically creating an arch, right? Can I have my heel? Can I have my base of big toe both kind of applying down force straight into the ground in a way that creates this nice arch? An arch is going to be the most stable way of actually connecting yourself to something in general. So I want to take advantage of that with both feet as well as the hands on the grip as well. And then again, the pressure is going to kind of flow with how I'm creating energy, right? When I'm using my lead side to kind of get this thing going, I'm going to feel a ramp up of pressure in my left foot, left hand. And then I'm going to feel it switch right foot, right hand, right foot, right hand. And then it's going to go back left foot, left hand. All right. So the pressure is changing, the contact's less so. The last big definition we need to talk about is tension. And this is something that we've talked about a lot in class. But again, let's say that I had my really good contacts. I've got a nice kind of 50-50 kind of distribution of pressure. I try to create some force with my left rib cage, left pelvis to create this differential, right? So I'm feeling a pressure change. So here right now, I'm feeling a pressure change. But as you can see, I'm not getting a lot of momentum by what's going on because you can see how much tension I'm keeping in my arms. If I start to relieve that tension, you can start to see that the club starts to swing and rotate faster than my muscles could ever contribute. And that migration of energy, allowing that energy to get all the way from your feet up through your body, out through your arms, into the grip, all the way out into the club head, that migration of energy is dependent on the level of tension in your system. Do you have a ton of tension in your legs, around your pelvis, around your rib cage, around your shoulders, around your arms? Right. So understand that it's essentially the level of muscle activity. So you can start to connect the dots here. Let's say I don't have heel contact. All right. And let's say now because I'm way forward, okay, it's harder for me to create this differential in pressure. Well, then what am I going to have to do? I'm going to have a lot more tension in my system just keeping myself upright. And that tension is going to make it way harder for that club to efficiently swing and rotate. All right. So essentially, if you were to grab onto this golf club, you can change the pressure in my hands. You can move this club back and forth, but the hand contacts aren't going to change. Right. And because you're easily able to move this club around, that's revealing that I have a very low level of tension. All right. If you were to grab onto the club and when you try to move it, my arms stayed in the same place and the club stayed in the same place when you try to move it, that would require a lot of muscle activity, a lot of turning my muscles on, a lot of tension to keep you from being able to move that golf club. So when I swing the golf club, I want to start to become aware of, hey, how well am I keeping my contacts? Is the pressure changing? Right? Am I allowing that tension to stay out of my arms? Am I allowing the tension to stay out of my ribs and my legs and my pelvis to allow that energy to kind of flow and migrate in a way that I could do it all day long? Again, like this is why we like the walking drill, is because I get to organize this stuff back here. Again, I got my contacts, okay, taking out tension, even like pressure still feels very 50-50. I created this nice little change of shape in my ribs and in my legs. I could feel the pressure going back and forth, but the contact does not. And then I'm going to take that same thing, I'm just going to walk this thing forward. And the feedback is, did that relationship of contact, pressure, tension, did that all stay the same? Or did you start to mix the two? So if I start to mix pressure and tension, that will mean that my tension levels are changing throughout the swing, right? And that's not what we want. All right. If you start to mix pressure and contact, all right, that means that the pressure stays the same throughout the swing, right? And we don't want that either. I have to, if in order to move this thing, I have to have a differential in pressure, right? So understand, like, hey, those three definitions are totally separate. All right. If you're struggling, it's good to look through, hey, are my contacts the same? Am I allowing myself within those same contacts to feel that differential in pressure? Right? How the pressure kind of ramps up on one side versus the other. And then if you're able to feel that, can you reduce those tension levels, shoulders and your arms and your legs, start to feel like, yep, I could do this all day long without getting tired. All right. That's how we want to organize your movement because it's the most efficient way. It's going to be the safest on your body. And it feels more enjoyable swinging freely than it does mixing the two and steering this thing all around the park. So, any last questions? I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the comments section here one more time. Does that make sense to everyone? Again, kind of some definitions that you've heard of throughout the class, but never really kind of explained one after the other kind of in that way to try to make a clear distinction between those three. All right. So I'm not seeing so far any questions. Thank you all for joining. I hope you enjoyed it. And travel safe. If you got a car, if you're driving around, drive slow and drive safe. I don't know if there's still any ice out there. It may have all melted, but this morning was pretty rough. So y'all have a great rest of your day.